So we're gonna go ahead with the article about physical activity or exercising, whether it is lifting weights, or aerobics, I think they're called exercises, like running and sprinting and cycling and whatnot. And we're gonna go ahead with what kinds of physical activities are humans adapted for. And I'm gonna read. All animals are adapted to be physically active, especially to acquire resources and mates, as well as to avoid becoming prey. And humans are no exception. However, there are several lines of evidence that humans evolved to be unique among primates and somewhat unusual among mammals in being especially well adapted for plentiful physical activity dominated by endurance as opposed to power. A comparative perspective indicates that humans also evolved to be adapted for a wide range of unusual and sometimes unique physical activities, such as long-distance walking and running in the heat, digging, carrying, and throwing projectiles both fast and hard. To trace the origins of the unique nature of human athleticism, a good place to start is with the divergence of the human lineage from its last common ancestor, LCA, last common ancestor, with chimpanzees, which occurred approximately 5 to 8 million years ago. Although the exact nature of the LCA is not entirely known, this species must have been a tree-climbing quadrupedal ape that inhabited rainforests in Africa. Like all great apes, other primates, and the vast majority of mammals, the LCA must have been adapted more for power rather than endurance. Chimpanzees, for example, are more than twice as strong as the strongest humans. They typically walk less than 3 to 5 kilometers, they rarely sprint and only for short distances, and they climb less than 100 meters. In addition, gym legs are dominated by fast twitch fibers, which means that they are very powerful but not very enduring. On the opposite, there is also, I think, slow twitch fibers, I guess, and they are more for endurance. And it is also very interesting to see what type of muscle fiber is dominant in your body, so that you can actually basically maximize the amount of, athleticism that you can get out of yourself, by knowing that. And I, for example, I'm a pretty good sprinter. I suck ass at running long distances, for several reasons, and which leads to me thinking that, well, I probably have more fast twitch fiber than I have slow twitch fiber muscles. But yeah, they cannot cool effectively through sweating, and they spend approximately 4 times as much energy per unit body mass to walk compared with most mammals. The first transition toward a more endurance-based phenotype likely began with the origins of bipedalism among early hominins, which probably means having 2 feet and walking using 2 feet, and not 4, like quadruple, anyway. Although the first hominins walk differently than modern humans, bipedalism was probably favored by natural selection because it helped hominids travel and feed more effectively in more open, non-forested habitats that were becoming more common than in Africa. The chief cost of bipedalism, however, was loss of speed and stability, but the trade-off must have been worth it because over the course of the next several million years, a diverse radiation of bipedal homini species evolved, collectively known as the Australopiths or Australopiths, whatever. Fossil evidence suggests that these highly variable species were effective bipeds, but they also retained many features for climbing trees. The next major shift in hominin physical activity probably started around 3 million years ago, when further climate change expanded over habitats in Africa, spurring the origins of the genus Homo between 3 and 2 million years ago. Although the earliest species of human are poorly known, one particularly important species, which is the H. erectus or Homo erectus, evolved by 2 million years ago. Homo erectus was different from earlier hominids hominins in having a larger brain combined with smaller teeth and generally human-like body with relatively long legs, short arms, and modern feet. Abundant evidence indicates that species of early Homo, especially the Homo erectus, evolved to be the first hunter-gatherer. Hunting and gathering is a subsistence system that combines foraging and hunting with the use of tools to acquire, extract, and process foods, as well as high levels of cooperation, including food sharing and division of labor. From the perspective of exercise, the evolution of the hunter-gatherer way of life was a monumental shift because this subsistence system requires a broad range of novel and intensified physical activity that are especially dependent on endurance. The most important is long-distance walking, which is trekking in not necessarily scientific language, but I think in using professional terms. Well, modern hunter-gatherers of similar body mass to Homo erectus and who inhabit similar arid tropical African environments walk an average of 9 to 15 kilometers, which is 5 to 10 miles per day to forage for enough food. It is almost certain that Homo erectus would have needed to walk similar distances per day to forage enough food, which helps explain the evidence that the genus Homo, especially the Homo erectus, has many novel adaptations for long-distance trekking, such as long legs and more modern pelvis and relatively large joints. In addition, hunter-gatherers have to carry food and babies across long distances. They occasionally have to throw projectiles and climb trees, and tropical hunter-gatherers typically spend 2 to 3 hours using sticks to dig up tubers. Finally, there is a good reason to infer that endurance running was especially important in the genus Homo. Although modern hunter-gatherers in Africa acquire about 30% of their calories from hunted meat, the technologies they use to hunt, including the bow and arrow, dogs, and nets, are probably less than 100,000 years old, and stone-tipped spears were invented less than 500,000 years ago. Thus, it is probably that for nearly 2 million years, a major way to acquire meat was through persistence hunting. Persistence hunting? Persistence hunting. Although now rare, this kind of hunting takes advantage of the fact that humans can run long distances and at speeds that require quadrupedal mammals to gallop, and that whereas other animals cool by panting, humans primarily cool by sweating. Since quadrupedal mammals cannot pant while galloping, they can overheat when they are chased for lengthy periods and must eventually stop to cool down. I didn't know that. And I didn't think about that before. Running hunters can thus effectively and safely hunt large animals through a combination of chasing while running and trekking while walking. In the Calaria, persistence hunts average 31 kilometers or 19 miles, with hunters running only about half that distance, usually at a moderate pace. Two major lines of evidence support the hypothesis that endurance running was practiced by the early Homo. First fossils of H. erectus include many adaptations for running that are unrelated to walking, such as expanded gluteus maximus, short toes, and enhanced abilities to stabilize the head against pitching forces. In addition, there is strong evidence that by 2 million years ago, hominids were able to hunt large prime-aged adult males in the absence of tipped projectiles or other lethal weapons. In short, the demands of hunting and gathering account for a wide range of novel adaptations, many of which require endurance rather than power or speed. Because of the intrinsic trade-off between endurance and power, we can infer that the transition from an ape-like physiology dominated by power to a more modern human-like physiology dominated by endurance was selected for strongly in early Homo, especially Homo erectus. Although walking was certainly the dominant physical activity, running also must have been important, along with carrying, digging, climbing, and more. And in the next episode, we are gonna talk about, is it the same? What kinds of physical activity are humans adapted for? Well, the other one was also what kinds of physical activities are humans adapted for? Are humans... Oh, what kinds of physical inactivity are humans adapted for? So by now we know that we, quote unquote, were designed for endurance, rather than for power. Even though I do want to underline once again that we all have different structures or different compositions of muscle fiber, As I said before, some have more fast twitch muscle fibers and some have more slow twitch muscle fibers, Which leads to the conclusion that, by figuring that out, you can maximize your potential. Quite, if you think about it, makes sense. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that one should only run, which is also kind of proven by modern science, that it is something amazing. It is something good, probably also because we were designed for that. Even though, just because we were designed for that, we're still able to walk long distances, don't get me wrong, but we probably have changed in certain ways since then also, which kind of, a lot of things changed. And so it is quite difficult to say that just because things were a certain way that we also should be doing them right now, just because we were quote unquote designed for that, we now have food available all the time. We now have other things available all the time. We are in different circumstances, and therefore, at least for me, as I'm thinking about it right now, doesn't make 100% sense to say, okay, I'm gonna do this and that and these and those just because we were designed for that, originally, but we're not living this original life, Anyway, very interesting article, and I'm very much looking forward to going through the next part of it, and I'm hopefully gonna be accompanied by you when I'm doing so. And up until then, I'm gonna see you the next time. Bye bye. I wish you the best.